Hey dancers, it's Kirsten. Welcome back to the Confident Dancer YouTube channel. Today I have a really cool interview with my friend Rebecca Haw, who is not only a professional dancer with the Dresden Simper Opera Ballet, but also an entrepreneur in the ballet space. We love to see it. I mean, at least I love to see it. So given that Becca not only is a professional ballet dancer herself, who has been through the ringer with audition season after audition season, she also has expertise having founded multiple companies, one of which is how I found her, Audition Educator. Follow her on Instagram. I also will have all of her links down below. Of course, you know how it goes. But Becca founded Audition Educator, which is a really, really fantastic resource for pre-professional to professional dancers who are out there looking for a job in the ballet space and you're trying to navigate the audition process. I love Audition Educator and what Becca has created with that because she has multiple affordable and bite-sized courses that educate you on the process of how to prepare, how to get your materials together, how to network, how to follow up, like all the intricacies that can actually make or break your outcomes in the audition process. So yes, she has lots of fantastic resources with what she's created at Audition Educator. Also, she founded Koda, which is a digital marketing agency. And most recently, she created the Koda Auditions Hub, which you could definitely learn more about down below. Follow the page on Instagram and everything. It is the first agency within classical ballet, which will be connecting talented ballet dancers with the employers who are looking for dancers. I really think Becca is onto something with this, and I know that when I shared about it on my Instagram stories, I already got some messages like, wow, this is so helpful. So go check out her stuff down below. In our conversation today, we not only go through Becca's story in training, growing up, deciding she wanted to be a professional, to going through a harrowing audition process that I'm sure a lot of you can relate to, and I think there's a lot of hope in Becca's story as well because she has, as we would say, made it in the ballet industry. She does have a professional contract and she's been through several. But you know, she's also struggled, like I'm sure a lot of you have in the audition process, or putting yourself out there and then at the end of the season finding yourself without a job. That can be really hope destroying. It can be very discouraging. And so I really wanted to bring Becca on to share her story of how she navigated that, what she learned through the process, how she poured what she learned into her course offerings through Audition Educator. She talks about tips for auditioning. We really cover a whole lot in this conversation, and I also think you'll be encouraged to hear about how she started her entrepreneurial ventures and just her thought process and attitude behind that. I just love a dancer with a good, empowered attitude. So I hope you'll really enjoy this conversation. Again, check out Becca's stuff down below and enjoy. I'll see you later. Hey, Rebecca, welcome to the channel. I'm super excited for this conversation.
So much for having me. Thank you.
Well, ever since we did that IG live together, I knew this was in the cards for us, a YouTube collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can talk. So
We can talk.
it's long form.
Yes. So
Yeah.
we've got lots to dig into here. You're a very fascinating lady, between your professional dancing ventures to your entrepreneurship life and all of the fantastic insights you have to share around auditioning for the dancers watching. So let's start with the good old story. Tell us about your training background leading up to where you are professionally today.
Okay. So I started ballet at 2.5 years old because I could skip, and that was a coordination test apparently. And so did the whole local dance school thing and started training vocationally at 14. I did all my auditions around 13, went in at 14. And started training vocationally with Elmhurst Ballet School, which is in association with Birmingham Royal Ballet. I did 3 years there. I then moved to a bit more of an intense one-to-one kind of training. Came out of the ballet school boarding life and went to chaos dance, which is like a Cicchetti. There's more of a Cicchetti syllabi, more Cicchetti style, and finished up there and graduated there. So that was predominantly training. You know, I did the whole in the UK particularly, 13 is quite late. My brother and I actually went away at the same time because he was 3 years younger, also a ballet dancer, and he was 10 auditioning, and so it's actually very normal for you to go in at what we call year 7, which is 11 years old. Yeah,
Babies, what? That's crazy.
moving away from home and everything. It was boarding school.
Yeah.
So I was quite late. I was there 3 weeks, and I'd had a stress fracture already in the second metatarsal because I was going from like 1, maybe 2 point classes a week in my recreational 4 ballet schools in the whole county or state that I could get to full-time training. So I got injured straight away. However, loved my time at professional training and boarding school. I wouldn't swap it for anything. But it didn't come without its challenges. I had
of course.
a couple of injuries. Right. That was one of the injuries. I actually left with a different injury. I tore 3 ligaments in my ankle, and that took so long to repair, which was why I then went to a more, focused, intimate, one-to-one style training. And so that's the training portion. Shall I continue?
Act 1. Let's go with Act 2.
Act 1. And the interval. Oh dear. So I graduated as most people do at I just turned 19, like within weeks. And that year I did a whole round of auditions, as you also normally would. So I auditioned from 18 to just my 19th birthday as I graduated. And it became clear to me that my middle name was cut at bar. Because it was not a great season. I think actually the first audition I ever went to, I got it, and it was some very dodgy backroom company in the south of France somewhere. I don't even know what the name was. And they're like, yeah, we'll take you. I was like, yeah, not staying here one more minute. But not the most successful audition season, let's say. And I got quite a few under my belt, all around Europe. I'm quite tall, so that was an issue. And at the time we had more of a cookie cutter ballet society in the sense that a lot of the companies are very like uniform height, and I'm 2 inches taller than that. And so that brought a lot of challenges. I even did a West Coast of America tour. People thought, especially one of my coaches, she was principal with San Francisco Ballet, she felt that I'd be better over there with the height as well.
Yeah.
Again, built a lot of contacts, and I got my foot in the door at San Francisco Ballet, but unsuccessful, in the grand scheme of things. And so by this point, I've really racked up a nice bill for myself with my student loan, and I graduated without a job. So I moved back home, as most do, and I got a few I call them normal jobs. I don't want to be insulting, but I had a few different jobs outside of ballet. And so I was waitress in a cafe, bartender at a nightclub. On a Saturday, I worked as like a shop assistant in a boutique store. I had my lifeguard's license already, and so I worked as a lifeguard in 2 different leisure centres. But those were all at once to try and pay back what I'd spent and pay for continued auditions. And I had the keys to my dance studio, but really, when you're, working those kinds of jobs and that schedule, the motivation diminishes, let alone everything else. I was going to the gym a lot because it was more convenient, it was closer, or when I could afford to or had a day off, I would take the coach up to London to take a class at Pineapple, which in itself is, you're looking at 30, 40 quid, which, for me at the time was not the cheapest of options, but that was kind of the closest professional class, let's say. And I did that for a further 9 months. So I was nearly 2 years after graduating before my first contract.
Oh my goodness. Can we pause right there? And
I was going to say, let's pause there. Get really into
The persistence. First,
Oh yeah.
first, how tall are you?
I'm 5'8", so I'm 175
Mm,
centimeters.
me too. I
Yeah.
empathize. There are great parts of being tall. You have a presence about you, but then
Yeah.
people are also like, here's the box that you belong in which there are no jobs, no
Yeah.
partnering. And yeah,
Yeah,
there you are.
absolutely. Especially, I don't want to be like back in my day, let's face it, it's not that long ago. However, back in my day, there really wasn't that much variety in height. This was before apprenticeships, before junior programs, before any of that. And so you had to have experience. And so it was
Hmm.
hard. Like I didn't have any experience and I was too tall. Um,
So how were you supposed to get your foot in the door then if you need experience to get
right. And
experience?
yeah, by my mid-20 moves, that had all switched, and suddenly people have realized they could pay people less and call them apprentices, and they needed no experience. And so I had all this experience the second time. We'll get to it, but
Yeah.
yeah, the market wasn't great for me on all of my times trying to get a
Wow.
job in classical ballet. It hasn't been great.
Dang. Okay. So I want to know, what was it that kept you going during those 2 years?
I just I just knew I could do it. I knew I could do it, and I knew I'd be good at it. And it was that kind of relentlessness. And actually, it's something I talk about a lot with dancers now, in the sense of just right before I got my contract. We'll talk about the contract in a minute, but it was not some glitz glamour full contract situation, definitely not. But when I got that first one, I'd come to the conclusion that this was in April, May, and I came to the conclusion that if I didn't get a job by the end of the summer, I was going to look elsewhere. And I'd actually done an audition for the Moulin Rouge the day before I flew to this audition. And so I was already, for that one, I was too short. Got right to the end, too short.
Wow.
Intake. I was like, what a chat.
Shocking.
I know. So I ended up putting a deadline on it. And then there's a freedom that comes with that.
Mm.
There's a freedom that comes with not having all your eggs in this one basket, and the possibility and the ability to let go of those kinds of stresses and inhibitions. I know we've spoken about this before. And so I believe that was quite a big contributing factor into me getting that
Yes.
feedback, because of how I would have been at that audition. More of an effort attitude. I hope it's okay to say that.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, that belief makes so much sense, though. Well, I want to ask you about how you developed it or how you felt that you really could trust. I can do this,
right.
which is hard for some people to answer because sometimes we just have this like sense of knowing, and it's not something you could really conjure. But then also sometimes there are these little epiphany moments where it's like, I can do this, or I just trust it. But from the really practical side, having belief that what you are working towards is possible and it's possible for you, and having that be this emotional, like felt sense of belief, not just this idea of sure anything's possible for people out there and maybe
Right.
me too. It's like this conviction that
Yeah.
we can get to it. It takes time, but for some more than others, but having that conviction does allow us to hold on to a vision of what we want, even when we have contrary evidence in our present moment.
Oh,
This is a
so much
huge
evidence.
example of
I mean,
that.
if it was like some sort of court case, I'd have been convicted. I don't know. Like, this ain't happening for you. No way. And I actually, I was in London ready to fly to this audition, and I had that exact conversation with my dad. We were literally, I could tell you the street we were on, and I was like, I just know I could do it. I would just like a shot, even if I do it for a month or a very short time. I don't care, but I want to do, like, yeah. There's nothing about that, and probably for a lot of my audition season, those couple of years, I probably stank of desperation
Mm.
more than anything. Or I'm not saying that that's what went wrong with all of them, but that would have been in the air, because
I know what you mean.
I had so much, I felt I had so much writing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that sense of pressure, and this is a huge insight for dancers watching, that life can be so paradoxical sometimes, in that in order to, for example, really hold on to a vision of something you want and you believe in, but you don't yet have, you also have to surrender to the outcome of not having it so that you're not desperate the whole time. And the desperation honestly affects us in, oftentimes bringing up more fear, more tension, more worry, rather than the presence of mind to focus on the action that will help us to get there. So that's one paradox. And there are so many that we'll encounter in our ballet journey, like needing to have belief in ourselves and have a solid opinion of ourselves, and to a certain level not be so concerned about what people think. But then at the same time, our jobs and our future is somewhat dictated by what people think. It's such a paradox. And that's
Sure,
why
sure.
this
And
mindset stuff is so important, because like
yeah,
we have to sort it out.
absolutely. And it doesn't stop with auditions.
No.
Like, is it even the first? Maybe the first three. I don't know. There's a few in there, but like, that's just the beginning. All of that
Right.
will repeat itself so many
Mm.
times in so many different scenarios.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey dancers, thanks so much for watching this video so far. I want to briefly talk to you about the Confident Dancer Coaching Program, which is a new and improved version of the mindset coaching program I've been doing for years with pre-professional and professional dancers from all over the world. So the Confident Dancer Coaching Program is a 4-month signature program where we really do the inner work of preparing your mindset, your emotional wellness, and your career strategy to accomplish your goals, get you to a place where your mind and your emotions help you to actually perform your best consistently, so that we can pair that with strategic action to help you perform your best with well-being in the process. I'm all about combining mental health, emotional wellness with all these aspects of optimum performance so that you can be a thriving dancer. There's no better time to engage with this than at the start of audition season. So if you want my support in really turning up the dial on your personal confidence, seeing yourself perform better than ever before because you're working on the mental aspect of that, you're not going to get that level of support at all in your technique classes. So that's just not what technique classes are meant for. So if you're in the place where you're like, I really want to perform my best, I want to feel awesome, I want to thrive as a dancer, I want to know that I'm doing my best, and I'm tired of things like self-doubt and insecurities getting in my way of that, or nervousness, I am here for you. I would love for you to check out this program. Again, the Confident Dancer Coaching Program. I'm only taking 5 clients on for the month of January, and each month after that. Spots are limited, so check it out and apply today. I would love to support you. Link is in the description to my new website, kirstenkemp.com. Same URL, but new and improved website. If you do nothing else, just please go look at the website. It looks so pretty now. I'm very proud of it. So go do that. And I can't wait to connect with you and work with some of you for a very successful start to your year. All right, let's get on with the video. So, how did you know? Going back to that question, how did you know this was possible for you?
I don't take no for an answer easily. Not in the sense of like, I'll cross the line over to being annoying or anything like that, but like that's what I always saw myself doing, was being a professional ballet dancer. And I was going to do it by hook or by crook. That was it. So I don't know how I knew. But that was my gut towards my abilities. There's a confidence that comes from, being much younger perhaps, and especially, when you're in a smaller area and you're, one of the bigger fish, and you were always going to be a ballet dancer, like, and everyone knew you as the ballet dancer and things like that. And I really don't hold to, there's very few people's opinions that I hold very highly, very few. So it wasn't I need to do this because everyone expects it of me. That never ever came into it, really, ever. not with my parents, not with any external things. Right. It really was purely my gut of this is like, I'm going to do it.
Intrinsic motivation.
Right. And I'm resilient as very resilient. If there's something else, I'm not. I'm very resilient. And it all of the rejections, that it just added fuel to the fire. You know, there were very few that I would come out and ever be in tears or, you know, be very, you know, I had this way where, and again, it was towards the end of this, and it also repeated in this exactly the same cycle in my mid-20 move as well. You know, I would come out of an audition that I'd been cut at absolutely beaming, because I'm like, I nailed that. I absolutely nailed it. If they didn't want me, that's okay. But like, I killed my class. I'm pleased with that. And like, you walk away happy. Yeah. Like, that's weird, but if you can get to that point.
And a lot of us can, and it might look different for different personalities, for sure. 100%. And there's totally room for that. I think when some dancers hear stories, and I actually resonate a lot with your personality, no surprise. I think that's why we connected so well. But I've seen dancers who resonate with being a lot more kind of subdued, or maybe they do have the tendency to really care what people think or be led by the approval of others. And I've seen them adopt their own version of what you're talking about, their own version of resilience and holding on to their personal vision, finding what really matters to them and what they are and are not going to focus on, so that they can have an enriching experience. And we can all have our own version of what fuels our fire. Maybe for you, it's, you know, even rejection. I know actually several people like that, or who are like, tell me I can't do something, watch me, you know? And then there are, I don't even feel like that so much. But then there are other things where it's like, I want to prove to myself that I can do it. Maybe for another person, it's, I want to do it for the next generation of dancers, or my little sister, or whatever it is. Whatever that is for you guys, like, we can all find that.
Yeah, and you're right. You know, everyone's is completely different. I do a lot for myself. You know, I feel like I do feel if I cut my resilience in half, it'd be half for me and half for everybody that I couldn't. Like, anyone who ever insulted me or gave me a fat chat, or, you know, it's kind of satisfactory.
I love that power move. So good. So already there are so many gold nuggets there. Let's move on to what happened next. You got your first contract. I'd love to know a little bit of how that happened, and then what happened next. You talked about a little bit of a mid-20s move, so tell us about that journey.
So I'd done the Moulin Rouge audition at Pineapple Dance Studios in London. I was then flying out, and I was flying out to Bucharest, Romania, which parents weren't thrilled about, but I didn't care. And it was a private company class audition. They were hiring for Swan Lake, and there was about 5 of us in there. And at the time at that company, all ballet staff would be on the panel, and so there's a balcony in the studio. There were about 9 on that panel. It was one of the heftiest ones I've done, probably. Yeah, no.
Wow.
But luckily they were up a bit, so you're not really like high line level, right? And that class had everything, and I can vouch for it. It wasn't just because it was an audition day, because it happened every day that I was a company member thereafter. There would be a good 15 minutes of virtuosity at the end of every class. And so we did fouettes one by one, Italian fouettes, ceases, manège, jeté manège. And if I'm a jumper, like, that's my bag. But I couldn't tell you the last time I'd done a fouette, a cease, a piqué manège. I don't know that I'd ever done a jeté manège. I don't think that was in my training. It's one of my favorite things to do now, but
Yeah.
like, I couldn't tell you when a year plus, not sure, that I'd done any of that stuff. It was all in there. They packed everything in.
Love it.
Yeah, anyway. So that was the audition, and I kind of, as I said before, I'd kind of let go of this has to be everything and blah blah blah. And you know, I did an okay class. Nothing was perfect, but I enjoyed it. I had fun. So you know, whether it was a yay or a nay, I had a good time. Called into director's office. Contract is €350 per month for 2 months.
But she's a professional.
But I'm a professional. No point to choose. No, nothing else.
Wow.
But yeah, and then it gets better. This was a Thursday, and they wanted me to start the following Tuesday. He asked me what my height was, which was on my CV, and then he asked me what my weight was, also on my CV. He then did some calculation, this minus this, and blah, blah, blah. I've done daft calculation, and then he said, you need to lose 2 kilos before you start. The time frame was 4 days. Not that I've ever succumbed to that kind of thing. And I've had more fat chats than I can count since. But yeah, that was the condition, which I would like to say, especially for anyone young watching.
Yeah.
I was never going to do that. That is never appropriate. And I absolutely do not condone the behavior of that director or anyone who would put you in that position. Absolutely not. That was never going to be something that I condone or that I was going to put myself through. Even at a younger age, I would never. So please, if anyone is hearing that, and you know,
good
it's
disclaimer.
kind of funny now, but yeah, just as a disclaimer.
And not every company is like that by any means. So especially for, I'm thinking of like the 13, 14-year-olds watching, that's around the time when, for me personally, I didn't even have social media. I was just talking to someone about this yesterday, and we were like, wow, I would have been so much more messed up if I had Instagram. I only had Point Magazine, and I started to restrict my food, and it was totally unnecessary. So I want to like protect the little girls out there and guys, you know.
No, absolutely. And
you're not going to encounter that everywhere, so don't put that on yourself right now.
No, absolutely not. Like that should not be a concern. And we live in a very different industry now. I'm not saying it's perfect. It's definitely not.
It's changing.
But, this was Eastern Europe in. I was going to try and work out the year. 10 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah, that was already a different time.
Like, let's not stress about that. But just as yeah, so that was the contract. I took the contract, and I said, with regards to the weight, it will not be happening in the next couple of days. However, I am generally quite out of shape. I have not had consistent training for some time.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that I will, you know, be in better shape within just a few weeks of training. Anyway, signed the contract. I flew home. I quit all my jobs that weekend, and I flew back on the Monday, started on Tuesday.
Wow.
That was it. Yeah, I know.
Wow. Okay, so
I stayed there more than the 2 months, but we can.
So you were there for a little bit, and then you decided to audition again?
We did, yes. The company had gone through a big political disaster, should we call it?
Sure.
Director was. I'm not even thinking of how I can say this politically. I'm like, how can I even word it to make sense? There was a lot of discomfort within the country that there were so many foreigners, and we had a foreign artistic director, and our intendant was being looked at for all sorts of financial issues, things like that. And so we ended up losing our artistic director, who was Johan Coburg. of Royal Ballet and Royal Danish Ballet, which was a huge blow, and there went most of the dancers with it. So in July of one of the last seasons, the last full season I was there, we were all scrambling for a job. Some got some and some didn't. And I spent the summer, taking classes in London as a waitress and things like that, deciding that, I came to the conclusion that it was better to go back and be paid little, but be paid to take class than to pay to take class and, not have a contract. So I did go back, and it was very clear that with the new director, I had 4 directors total whilst I was there, this new director, it was quite clear from early doors that this was not going to be a good fit. He did not like me. And, I actually pulled a sickie on the first weekend to go to an audition. Like, I flew out straight away. But I lost all my roles. I was demoted. And I was going from we were doing Don Q. I went from Queen of the Giants first cast down to second cast core, or covering the core. It was a real I am not into you as a dancer. You're not for me. Excuse me. And until it kind of came to a head then a couple of months later. This was before the Christmas, November, December, and we had a discussion. It was the first time I ever spoke back to someone who was in a superior position to me, or someone who was my boss or ballet mistress or anything like that. It was the first time I ever spoken. Among other things, it was a long heated discussion on stage after a stage call, and he said I was aesthetically unpleasing to look at because of my weight, among a myriad of things. And I left the conversation, and as I was walking home, I was beaming, smiling, because I was free. I was free.
It seems like it just made things really clear, and it gave you that switch to be like, I'm done here.
To this day, I'm still grateful that such an ugly thing was said. Grateful, because I was free. Yeah, as I said, I resigned a couple of days later, and actually, resigning to leave a company mid-season, that's some risky biscuits, but that's what I needed to do, and that's what I felt was good at the time. And it's probably the first time that there haven't been many instances where I really had to stand up for myself as a dancer, but that was a bit whoa, okay. You just out and out resigned because the director didn't insulted you or didn't, whatever it is. It was a risk, but I had close friends, or my brother also, where I'd set up company class at certain companies with a place to stay, so the finances was okay and things like that. And so I put some ducks in a row. And actually, by the time I left, he had a very honest discussion with me and said that he regretted, all the actions towards me and that I was leaving and things like that. So it turned around. And I was out. And so I had been auditioning for that September to December already, and still nothing. There was one company I auditioned for 3 times in one season, that season actually. Speed it up a bit. Christmas happens at home. I'm taking company class at Semper for Ballet here, and also Estonian National Ballet, a couple of other companies, Scottish. And I was then based here, as I was living on my brother's sofa on the couch, rent free.
In Dresden?
Yeah. And I was auditioning them from here. We're quite central in Europe, and so it was kind of easier. And one weekend I'd been to the Staatsballett Berlin audition, then to the Czech National Ballet audition, cut up bar there again. And actually, it was a conversation that I'd had with my brother. I was stood outside the Starbucks in January in Prague trying to use the Wi-Fi. I actually didn't have enough money in my account for a Starbucks, so I was stood outside because I had a 9-hour wait towards my bus. So we were trying to get my ticket changed and blah, blah, blah. a couple of the girls in the company had spoken to my brother and said, she should really hang around during rehearsals and things like that, because we're doing Swan Lake, something's bound to happen. And the director here had been very kind to let me take class and bumped into me in the studio, and he's like, oh, you can go in and put your point shoes on, just stay, if you're at the back, that's not a problem, you won't be in the way. I'm like, okay, now I'm in the studio.
Ooh.
Right. And the days between their conversation with the director and a couple of the dancers saying she should hang about, I'd been watching on the balcony, and I still have the notes somewhere. It was my moleskin diary. I wrote down the entire of Act 2 and 4. Like, I put all the choreography. I knew the entire ballet. So as soon as I was in the studio, they were a bit like, how should I go? I'd written the whole thing down. I'd been learning it for those 2 days anyway. So do a day like that, just, trying to be incognito at the back of the room. And then the next day, I'm warming up. Ballet mistress is walking over to me. I'm like, nah, she's not coming to talk to me. One of the dancers had announced that she was pregnant, and there was a guest contract for 6 months with my name on it. So I was in. That was it.
Yes. Okay. Several things to highlight here. I have to jump in. Your resourcefulness always. Well, first, when you're talking about the issue with the situation in Romania, your self-advocacy is such an asset that this is a practice any dancer can take on. It's the practice of getting comfortable advocating for yourself, knowing what your personal boundaries are. And I've made videos about this, you guys. I'll link them, or you can just search them, videos about boundaries and self-advocacy recently. Because without that willingness to stand up for yourself and make known what you are and are not willing to tolerate, or what you need, there can't really be true collaboration. And we kind of, just as dancers, if we don't self-advocate, we put ourselves in the position of just being totally subject to another person's will or just mood of the day.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if your director came back and said he regretted things, because you showed such respect for yourself that it kind of commands it out of other people too. And that's something that's possible for every personality type. Again, I really want to emphasize that in this conversation for the dancers listening who are like, well, I'm not that kind of a person. We can all become it. We really can. And you're all worthy of it.
It doesn't need to be dramatic either.
It doesn't.
It doesn't need to be a big argument in the middle of the stage after a stage. Like, it doesn't have to be that. It can be, a calm, quiet, cordial discussion in someone's office. It can be anything, but 100%, way more respect for me that I spoke back. I had a bouquet. I had a whole personal bow with bouquets on my final performance, and 3 weeks earlier was that. And so a lot can come from that, and man, does it feel good.
It really does, because if we allow our sense of worth as people to be dictated by someone else's opinion, we'll constantly be unstable on the inside. We'll constantly be in a state of fear and stress and worry.
And you'll never be fulfilled, because you'll never get fully what you want from,
Exactly. And also, there isn't a certain level of technique that gives you permission to feel that way about yourself.
Right.
Even if anyone watching isn't like you didn't go to boarding school and train from a young age or things like that, there are companies that are for different levels of dancers. You know what I mean? Like different degrees of prestige. And even at these tiny companies, you still have to go in knowing what you personally have to offer to that space. We can't just continue to compare ourselves to the best in the industry if that's not really the space we're meant to occupy. We have to think of what is good for us and start to advocate for ourselves at that level, respect ourselves at that level. And then additionally, when you made the change to Dresden, it's amazing that you really took that initiative to be present, to instead of listening to what the girls said and being like, oh, I don't want to be awkward. I mean, hey, I would totally have those thoughts if I was in that position, and I know so many of us would, but we still can, feel the fear and do it anyway. We really can. You have to
Right.
give yourself
And
a chance.
yeah, and that was, that was my, not that that was an audition, but the next 6 months was my audition for the company. But if you call that one audition, I auditioned for Semper 4 times, 4 official times, and that
Wow.
was I mean, if we could call that the last one. That wasn't when I got my full contract. I did audition for 6 months.
Wow.
For that under the same director.
That is so much
You know,
persistence. And see, I want to highlight to
don't
dancers
even remember
that
saying on the first one.
um, it's okay if, I want to say that we have to know what is worth it to us to pursue. And for example, I always like to say when dancers, especially successful dancers, they always say like my advice to younger ones is like you have to love it. If you don't love it, get out. And I know that it used to inspire some fear in me like do I love it enough? Will I like
Right.
saw off my own arm to love this art form enough? And
Yeah.
if I don't want to do that, am I like not going to be successful?
Can I not do it? Yeah.
Um, but for every single person, we get to ask ourselves, what is my vision of like what success means for me? What do I really want? Not just because other people say this kind of a contract makes you successful or cool or admirable in front of other people, but like what kind of lifestyle, what kind of company is really exciting to you? And then we can just be honest about what we really want, and we can gauge what level of sacrifice is worth it for us in order to do what it takes to get to that level. Because sometimes it's like you pass the threshold of like this is not worth it to me. I passed that threshold many times where I'm like, this crap is like that's I'm not sacrificing
Oh.
my life for this. No.
No, right. And actually, and it doesn't, sometimes it's a process of elimination.
Yeah.
You don't get the dream job, perfect contract first time. Even people who you might be coming out of school with and you're like, or just graduated and you're like, oh god, they got their dream job first time. That's not their dream job. It's just not.
Probably not.
Because at some point they'll move and they'll find this place they're supposed to be, or they stay there and they're in a different manner or a different rank and something like that. It can be a process of elimination. Was my perfect contract €350 in Bucharest? No, but I loved that I got that contract. I wouldn't pass it up for anything in the world. And I feel this. I felt the same as you. Was I obsessed enough with ballet to,
Yeah.
which I'm personally not.
Same. I
I
love ballet,
love it.
but like there are some things, especially in regards to like what I need to do to please other people. That's where it's like I will go through pain, injuries, I will work really hard, but as soon as I feel like I need to like put my tail between my legs in order to make someone happy, I'm like, sorry, dog.
Yeah.
Nope, not for me. And it's different for everyone.
Right. Right.
So I'd love to talk next about the where the idea for your two businesses started. You're dancing in Dresden. Where did Koda and Audition Educator come into your life?
Um. Well, Koda as a business actually started back when I was about 21. Obviously, that salary in Bucharest was not sufficient to live on. And although I would work in a pub or waitress for the entirety of my off season every year, because we were not paid in our holidays or for an injury in that company, and so, but I had to figure out a way to subsidize myself that didn't allow me to be somewhere in person
Mm-hmm.
and to pay for my point shoes and things like that, because a summer job like that can only take you so many months. I was good at web design. And I liked doing that. And so I'd started doing that freelance from about 21. Just, here and there where something came up or, something came through the grapevine and they're like, yeah, Becca's good at that, especially with an eye for the classical industry. You know, I did it for a couple of virtuoso classical musicians as well. So it kind of gravitated towards that. And that about 5 years ago, so as I came to Dresden, that was then became a business officially. And Koda stands for Consultancy Operations and Design Agent, or agency, now agency. And it's also the best bit of the ballet, so that's why it's called Koda. And that's now a digital marketing agency for the classical world. And so we now do all sorts of, you know, brand strategy, web design, social media management, the works. And it's all stuff I love to do. You know, I've been on the social media team of Semproper. I held that for a year around that. And so I've done a wide variety of it whilst I was still a dancer, as I'm still a dancer. That's how that came about. It was a way to pay for my point shoes, and it's just developed into a fully fledged design studio now. So that's the history of Koda. Audition, educator, and the audition space, you know, more widely, as we've got all sorts coming out soon. Audition educator I launched August 2020. And it came to me like in a week on a holiday of like exactly how, you know, we've spoken before about how you know what the end goal is and things like that, and it took you a hot second to work out exactly how you're going to do it or how you're going to get there. I know you've had the same thing. I'm sure
it'll feel like stalling. Like, why am I such a procrastinator? And then it's like, it's time.
I'm like scribbling on a beach in Mallorca. I kid you not. And so I always knew I was going to do something to help auditionees and to fix recruitment. And I had such a hard time with all of that. As we've heard some of it, like we've heard like 1% of it, but I always knew I was going to do something in that area. And so August 2020 founded Audition Educator, which is an educational platform and service for dancers auditioning. And so if that's, you know, my youngest clients are in their second year before graduating, and so they've got a year left, and then graduate year through graduate year up until the mid-20 move professionals who are trying to get there, you know, do that first move or that second move for themselves. And that's how that came about. There needed to be information.
Yeah, totally agree. Because unless you have a mentor, and even like if you have one mentor that's helpful to look over your CV or your resume, help you put together your video, that's great. But then also that's just like one person's perspective, and maybe they danced professionally 20 years ago. So
this is the issue.
Yeah, and you're current. You're a dancer now.
So right. I'm still doing it. Like, still doing auditions, still doing all the things. And it can get very outdated very quickly. I mean, if you think about how people auditioned just 2 years ago before the pandemic and now, now people have to do a video CV. You know, that's insane. And so even just in those 2 short years or 5 years since I did a full round of auditions, let's say, and so it can be very outdated and very singular opinions. You know, I get my information from all sorts, but predominantly directors or ex-directors, because I mean, if you want to know the right information, go to the source, right? And I've done all of that. I've done all that legwork, and so we're super pleased and proud of what we've built, and you know, it's still growing, and I hope that you know, for a long time continues to be a place of just, you know, help, information, all sorts. We've developed it slightly. I always knew I would have I would bring an agency format to classical ballet, always knew I'd do that, but again, for a very long time. And anyone who knows markets in general, or if I've spoken to entrepreneurs or people in the classical world as well, they're like, good luck. Luck is exactly what I need, and that's absolutely fine. But as we've learned, if someone says I can't do something, we're going to try and do it.
Of course.
Right. And so that's just come out of the gate. We're just starting. We've got Koda Auditions Hub launching at the end of Jan. And that's
Amazing.
the first platform for, that's the first platform for classical dancers to be represented for classical jobs.
That's incredible. Because it exists in the acting industry, musicians, also speakers, all sorts of talent. And yet dancers are just left to be their own agents. And,
especially ballet dancers.
I know.
I've got friends in other fields of dance. They've all got agents, an agency, a headhunter's representation, recruitment consultancy, like nothing. Cricket, ballet.
And it is such a part-time job, at least, to be looking through the internet for your own opportunities, especially without industry connections. And for those dancers who are going through their first round of auditions, especially, you're not going to have very many connections unless you worked directly with, through a school and you have a tie to the director, but then you might not even be auditioning for the company. So
Right. If there's that, and that's just one. I mean, that's why we did the expert email list, so that at least people could just get contacts. But
so smart.
Yeah, and also it is a part-time job, if not more than that. And also for the employers, the amount that they have to sift through, and if dancers just knew a little bit more about how to market themselves and all those kinds of things, or if employers could just make it clearer and easier on the dancers. I mean, if we just take the topic of what to film for your video,
100%,
the range is expansive.
Yes. I mean, even I'm thinking about my university course in marketing, and how the first class I learned that one of the definitions of marketing is that marketing is facilitating a transaction where one person has a demand or a need. One person has the ability to fill that. And marketing is the process of creating a transaction where one person can provide funds or some sort of exchange and the other person can provide, the service. And just thinking about how, you and I, obviously we have our own businesses. You and I both know that we can have fantastic products and services. We can change someone's life, but if we don't market that, no one will be changed by it. No one.
Nothing.
I had this idea in my head that when I was dancing and then starting my business, I just need to be a great dancer and the opportunities will come. Or I just need to be a great coach and the work will speak for itself. No, it won't, actually. It won't. You need to learn how to connect. People don't care. They're not looking for you. So, I mean, as harsh as that sounds, it is harsh. But the beautiful thing is we can learn.
Yeah. And in both of our scenarios, I'm sure you found it as well, we're creating spaces. That's how far ballet is behind, in the sense of it doesn't exist. I can do any course on, writing a business plan, let's say, for example, any course I like, and they're list your competitors. Nada. List the industry standards and the norms. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It just repeats and repeats. And so I know you found it as well, I'm sure you have, in the sense of almost creating industries within our industry, because that's how far it is behind.
Yeah, but in that space, there's so much beautiful opportunity. And I think it's so inspirational for dancers to hear that. I mean, even hearing about not only Audition Educator and the video course content, the materials you have, it's just all the resources are right there. It's right there. That's why I want to highlight what you do. But then also with the agency, I just today I reshared your post about the agency launching, and I got a DM right away like, "This is so helpful." I'm like, "Yeah,
Love it. Yeah.
yeah, this is the beginning of something really, really great."
Right, right. And people are a bit tentative. They're like, well, okay, really? Like, are you sure that's what you're gonna do? Or, whether it's like, critics or even dancers as well. But people are into it, It's
Yeah.
gonna be a shift.
Yes, absolutely. And I hope dancers watching get inspired that, well, I want to encourage you all to ask yourself the question, what needs do I see being left unfilled in my company environment, in my school, in the ballet industry? What do I see people frustrated about, complaining about? Um, all these things. It's the empty spaces, the unmet needs, the frustrations that are the opportunities for businesses for getting a contract. Even your friends at in Dresden were the ones, or maybe these girls weren't even your friends, but they just had the presence of mind to be like, we're doing Swan Lake, girls, something's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Get in the studio.
They
That
didn't know
is
me
where
from
things
Adam.
happen. It's the
Yeah.
person who's like, I see the gap and I'm going to stand in it,
Yeah.
even if I'm the first and no one has made the path clear before. Okay, I'm going to find it.
Yeah.
Or I don't know the ballet. Okay, I'm going to watch and I'm going to learn the whole thing. I'm going to write down the whole thing, find the gap, stand in it, no
Yeah.
matter what it is.
Yeah. And it filters into everything. It goes back to, if we're talking entrepreneurship and this filling in the gap and in what you've just explained now and where your opportunities are, this comes back in spades in so many ways I can't even tell you.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to what we were saying during auditions of having something else to focus on, and your eggs not being in one basket, and that desperation being like all consuming. It's seen so much as a split of focus, and it's really not. It's so focusing, I can't even tell you, to have something else going on.
Yeah.
Which will lead into your company life. If you ever, touch wood not, but if you ever get an injury, you're not left for 6 weeks with like diddly squat to do, like what on earth do I do with my time and things like this, or retirement. We don't go that long, and some longer than others if they're lucky, but there's all sorts of ways that seeking those opportunities can pay back in spades. I cannot
Yes.
tell you. I'm such a better
Absolutely.
dancer because of them, because of my businesses.
Yeah.
And it's got nothing to do with the way I've changed training or anything like that. It is mindset, worth, focus, and I do way better for having businesses alongside my career. I really do.
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. I could cheer that on all day because it really is the mindset and the sense of worth that comes from making your own decisions, from believing in what you have to offer, um, even building positive evidence with yourself. I talk about that a lot with clients, that
Yeah.
in order to shift into a deeper sense of confidence or worth in yourself or whatever it is, belief in what's possible for you, you have to start first giving yourself the opportunity to build new evidence of what you want to believe. So if you want to believe that you're a fast learner, throw yourself in the front and give yourself some time to like trial and error, give yourself some
MVP, yeah.
grace and compassion, but put yourself in the position where you raise your hand to demonstrate. It takes that kind of, again, seeing the gap and throwing yourself into it to be like, okay, maybe the first like 3 times that I feel a little bit embarrassed, I didn't quite live up to the challenge I was hoping, but maybe time number 4, you're like, maybe I can. Maybe I can.
Right, and there's never one route to doing that. There's such a good example, and even just with that, I'm pegged as a quick learner. I'm not a quick learner. I do my homework. And so
Yeah.
once I've learned something, I'll come home and I'll do it for 3 hours in my living room or write it down or whatever it does for me to get something in. And the next day they're like, "Oh, you've got it already."
Yeah,
quick learner. And
it's
so
getting the
finding
job
what
done.
works for you, right, in whatever which way.
Exactly. Just like if we decide at 14 that our leg isn't as high as the girls next to us, so I'm not naturally an adagio dancer. I felt that way for a while too. But the thing is, if we decide that at 14, we actually start to limit ourselves. Like, I'm not the kind of person who does that. And then what we do on the subconscious level is we just act out everything we believe. And then it
Right.
becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So instead, saying, okay, well, maybe there's this one idea of what it looks like to be a quick learner, and it's like the person who's like watches it once, demonstrates it perfectly, and that has value. Totally, it's a great asset to have as a dancer. But what's really important is that you learn one day and you come back the next day and you're better than the day before, and that you're demonstrating that you're implementing corrections, you're listening, and you're applying yourself. So we could get really hung up on, like, I'm not the dancer who learns after one time and does it perfectly. Or we could say, okay, well, what's the point here? And how do I just be the best learner I can be?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're doing that. So great
What works.
example. I'd say we could finish off here with some hot tips for the dancers who are auditioning. It's January,
Yeah.
especially in the US. We have
It's
this
prime
really
time.
it's the springtime is like our audition season. I
Yeah.
sometimes wish it was a little bit more like Europe, in which it's normal to have auditions all the time, but pros and cons, pros and cons.
Right.
So,
There, it is heavy auditions for us as well, January
okay.
to March, but
Yeah,
yeah, generally.
right. So, what would you want to tell the dancers going into their auditions this year?
Oh,
No pressure. Out of
how many am
everything you
I
know.
allowed? No pressure. Look, I'm sitting forward. I'm like,
3.
well, okay. We've spoken about marketing.
Yeah.
And so market yourself. Make sure that you have the best portfolio that you can have and not to get overwhelmed with that. And so choreographing, for your video audition reel, choreographing exercises that suit you and that you look good doing and that you enjoy doing. In your photographs, do your research, know your angles, put on your most fierce leotard that you feel fab in. Make sure that your CV is clear and concise and things like that. And so use those, what we've spoken about as marketing tools, but those are the transition, like those materials are the beginning of the transition that you spoke about before of, need and service, or
Yeah.
someone who can fulfill that need. That's the start of it. Oh gosh, I'm just there's so many things.
Yeah. I love
Um,
that point, though. I've talked a lot about, even when you're in the audition, being clear on, instead of focusing on yourself so much, like, how do I be the most perfect me and make them want me? Again, desperation energy, which is understandable. We've all been there.
been
But
there.
instead, thinking, what are they looking for? What kind of dancer would provide value to this company beyond just the
Yeah,
technique? Focusing on them, and like, how can I provide the most value out of what I already
yeah,
have to offer, instead of like,
yeah.
I hope they like me.
I
It can be a little bit more
know.
transactional, unpersonal, I guess,
Yeah,
in dancing.
absolutely. And with that, actually, like as a second tip, I would actually say do your research,
Hmm.
which we have spoken about on Instagram. Is do your research so that you know going in how you can do all those things that you just mentioned there. Um, who are you working for? Like, who are the other dancers and where did they train? What repertoire is coming up? Where are the ballet masters from? And what might their taste be based on that? And things like this. This can all be done with a quick little 5 minutes on Google. Like, it doesn't take
Totally.
rockets. It's not rocket science. But do your research so that when you are at the audition, you have all of that under your belt and you already, you're embodying what will give you the best chance
Hmm.
to be successful at that audition. And thirdly, I know you're going to be speaking like leaps and bounds about the mindset and that side of auditioning, please enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like if you went in there and enjoyed it, I know it sounds like the lamest tip ever, and you wanted me to tell you exactly what color leotard you should wear.
It's true though, and everyone should really listen. Have
I'm never
some
going to tell
fun.
you what color leotard to wear, but like, please, if you do one thing, not even for me, not for Kirsten, for yourself, please enjoy it, because that will speak louder than any amount of pirouettes you do or how high your leg is or anything else. If you can enjoy it and be, collected and quietly confident and free, you'll get your job. You will get your job. It might not be the first or the second, or in my case, the 50th, because I think I counted once and it was probably over 50 auditions in my time.
Oh my God.
It might not be, but
yeah,
it'll be one of them. So
totally.
I guess we'll have enjoyed it.
I really agree with that. The more that we enjoy, I believe it's so important, because even think of how much we like to watch dancers who are exuding that sense of presence or enjoyment. It makes us feel what they're feeling. I've talked about it so often that we just want to feel good. That motivates so much of our human behavior. It's feelings. And feelings are extremely infectious in the positive and the negative sense. Yeah. We all know this, and we can actually use it to our advantage. It's the coolest thing too, because it's like the means is actually to the end is enjoyment. And we often place our sense of like, oh, I will enjoy myself when I get the contract. But the more you actually focus on enjoying the journey or appreciating it or just being grateful, whatever, being present for it, usually the ends become more enriching.
Right, and the ends never stop either.
Yeah.
I'll enjoy when I get the contract. Okay, I'll go enjoy when I get my first role. Okay, what's the next role? It does not stop. So start enjoying it now. And also what you said there about your eye being drawn to the person who's enjoying themselves. Who do you look at on stage or in an audition or anywhere?
Yeah.
You look at the one who's beaming and having the best time.
Yep.
In a party, like, it's all the same.
It's the same. And we call it the X factor. It's like there's something about them. There's something about them. And people identify it as potential or intelligence or competence. People actually, like humans, we can be hacked so easily, you guys. Like psychology is just, it's incredible what we've learned in terms of like what influences human behavior and decision making. It's directors watching, they probably won't even recognize this consciously, but I recognize that the more that I exhibited confidence or felt it, and the more that came out in my body language, the more I would see that even if I kind of stumbled in my pirouettes, people, like the director would tell me, I know I can trust you. You're consistent. And I'm like, am I consistent? Like, I don't know about that. Thank you so much for that review, but like, I don't think that. But it came out in my body language, and it transmitted this sense of like benefit of the doubt. I can trust her. Versus, I know that for myself, even when I thought, oh, I did pretty well a couple years prior to that, but I was struggling with a lot of insecurities and I didn't trust myself. I would constantly be the one who would like be yelled at over the music, like get it together, and I thought I was doing okay. But it's like I almost felt like it created this Pygmalion effect where the teachers would assume that I was going to mess up, and then I felt that from them, and then I would mess up. Yeah. And so it's amazing what kind of chain reactions we can create just by being intentional with our own inner state. Yeah. So that's my mindset 2 cents on that. You really opened up a can of worms. You knew it. Well, Rebecca, this has been so good. I know that we could talk so much more about so much entrepreneurship, ballet, and for the people watching, they can get a lot more of you on Instagram. And you also have a website. Is that correct?
We do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you're auditioning, auditioneducator.com.
Mm-hmm.
It's all there.
We'll
I'm
link
at
it.
more.com. Yeah, all easily findable. I'll give you some
Perfect.
links so you can pop.
Yeah, so the dancers can get access to the course content from Audition Educator. They can look into the upcoming launch of the agency, or the launch. It's
Yes,
upon us. It is upon us, right?
yeah, yeah. It's like we're in it
We're in it. It's here. Yes.
right
So,
now.
I mean, you guys can definitely hop on that and
Yeah, I
follow
look
you
forward to
for
seeing
more
that.
inspirational content. So, thank you. This has been so good.
Bless you. Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Ciao.